Alright, in lesson 3 of section 1, we're going to work on the second half of the part A assignment. So you should have a new Inkscape document open, and go ahead and file or view zoom page to get your whole page showing there. And to start out with, we're going to use some new tools for this on this document. So go ahead and grab your spiral tool here, and you're just going to click and drag to draw a spiral like so. And then on the spiral, click and drag the center handle outward along the path of the spiral to move the center point of the spiral. So we can click and drag, should be able to click and drag, oh, I see, we can adjust the spiral there, or you can click and drag this outside handle to adjust it that way, making it longer, or again, the center handle to take out some spiral lines or add in some more. So you can adjust the spiral with both of those handles. Now we're going to, let's see, click and draw some more spirals. So draw a couple more spirals on your page with the spiral tool. And using the selection tool, click a spiral, then click and drag to resize the resize arrows to resize it. So then go and grab your selection tool, and we can adjust the size of our spiral with these handles. So if you want to adjust the spiral itself, you can click on the spiral tool and adjust those handles. Or if you want to adjust the overall size of the spiral, use your selection tool to do so. Now we're going to click our spiral tool, and then on the spiral tool controls up here, we're going to click the divergence arrows to change the distance between the turns of the spiral. So our divergence, you can click on these arrows to change the, oh, I see, the divergence of the spiral. So you can adjust your spiral that way, mess with that until you get the spiral how you would like it. And keep drawing and editing spirals until you're comfortable with the tool. So just make sure you've drawn a couple different spirals and that you've made some edits to each of them, just to show me that you have adjusted this tool. So that, again, this divergence option increases the space between the lines of your spiral. So draw a few different spirals and make some adjustments to each so that they all look a little bit different. And then we'll go up to File and Save, and we're going to save again in our Section 1 folder, and we're going to call this one Preview. We have Review, and now this is Preview. Okay, next we're going to grab our Rectangle tool, and on the left end of the palette, click the box with the X. So down here we want to click the box with the X to make sure we don't have any fill in our rectangle that we're about to draw. And then we're also going to press and hold the Shift key while clicking the black or dark color swatch to the right of the X. So you can either use black or a dark gray color while holding down the Shift key. And this is going to change the stroke of our rectangle that we're going to draw, and that just holding down Shift and clicking assigns it to the stroke color. So go ahead and draw a rectangle to overlap one of the spirals. And I'm going to go in. This has my settings from my previous project, so make sure your stroke style is set to align at 1 point if yours looks anything like mine, and with sharp corners selected, like so. Okay, so now we drew a rectangle to overlap the spiral. Now we're going to click the ellipse tool and draw an ellipse to overlap the spiral and the rectangle. So in order for the next steps to work, the ellipse and rectangle lines need to be solid. If they aren't, use the stroke style dashes to drop down. Okay, so that's what we just did, is we had made our lines solid. So now we're going to, and again this carried over from my last ellipse, so draw your ellipse over the top of the spiral and the rectangle as well. And then we're going to click in the edit menu, click deselect to unselect the ellipse, so deselect. And now we're going to click on our paint bucket tool. So this is another new tool that we're going to start using. On the palette, click a color you would like to use as a fill color. I like navy. And click an area inside the rectangle. And that fills the area inside the rectangle. But first, I guess I'm going to make sure this, and what happened to my ellipse? I'm wondering. So hopefully you didn't, it looked like my ellipse disappeared for some reason. So if your ellipse disappeared, make sure it reappears. And again, so go grab your paint bucket now and fill. Undo that. Now I want to make sure that I have a color selected. In my fill box up here, you can see I have navy selected, and then go ahead and click inside the rectangle to apply that fill color. So your paint bucket is going to fill until it runs into some edges. So you can pick another color now, and you're going to have to deselect every time, otherwise it'll keep applying to what you have selected. And now you're just going to kind of experiment, grab a bunch of different colors and apply it to different areas. Oops, I wanted that color, and I need to deselect, grab it again, pick a different color. So if you drew your rectangle and spiral like mine, you probably don't have as many options. Your text shows their oval and spiral and rectangle is overlapped like this, so they have a lot of different sections to work with. So had I done that with my, let's see if I can adjust my spiral now. Okay, so once you use your paint bucket tool, it kind of already, it turns it into one object that has all the same fill color shape. So but that's how your fill bucket works. So it fills an area until it runs into any line edges and keeps filling that open space until, again, it meets like corners where it can no longer fill outside of. So that's your fill bucket. And then the next step in our instructions says to move filled shapes. So using the select tool, click and drag the filled shapes to move them. So again, after we filled the color in, it creates a shape out of that color. So we could drag all those colors out, and you could readjust this oval, kind of like more so how the text looks, and we'd have a lot more we'd have a lot more spaces to work with. Always just make sure that you have that unselected before you go and grab your bucket, because whatever's selected at the time, it's going to go ahead and apply that to. So you want to deselect every time that you go to apply a color. So this will be a little more fun. Now we can apply a lot more colors to it, just because I have the shapes overlapped a little better. So again, you can just kind of repeat that step just so we can add some more color to our little creation there. And again, this is the fill bucket that we're using. Okay, so once you have a color applied to every space, I'm going to scroll down there a little ways, deselect. And instead of clicking off, I'm wondering if they have edit. Let's see, deselect. Okay, so you could choose deselect every time. Might be the easiest way, or I just kind of selection tool, click, and go get a new color. Okay, so that looks a little more fun. And then the directions for the next part were just to click and drag out those different shapes that it made. Okay, so I'm going to, you should already have, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So you should have a whole bunch of different shapes now. Make sure that they're all drug out of the spiral object here. And next we're going to mess with our erase tool. So over here in your toolbox, go ahead and make sure, first of all, make sure the filled shapes aren't touching the spiral, rectangle, and ellipse. If they are, use the selection tool to drag them out of the way. Then it says to click the erase tool, which is this down here. And on the Erase Tool controls, click and drag the width slider to 15. So on our slider up here, we're going to drag that to 15. Click the Touch Mode button, which is this one, Delete Objects Touched by the Eraser. So anything our eraser touches, it's going to delete. On the ellipse, click and drag to delete it. So whatever you drag over, it will delete that whole object. On the rectangle, click and drag to delete it. So anywhere on the rectangle. And then on the Erase Tool controls, click the Cutout option, which is this selection right here. On the spiral, click and drag to erase part of it. So your cutout option is a little different than, it's going to kind of cut out and around whatever shape your eraser is. And then eraser cuts a shape out of the spiral. So that's how the cutout option of our eraser works. And lastly, we're going to mess with the tweak tool. So it says to press Control A to select all of our objects, then click the tweak tool. And the tweak tool is this one right here. On the tweak tool controls, click and drag the width slider to about 15. And click and drag the force slider to 40. So we want our width at 15 and our force to about 40. 41 is fine. To the right of mode, click the Move Objects in Any Direction, which is that first option there. And on the Tweak Tool controls, click the Move Objects Toward Cursor button. On the canvas, click and drag the objects to move them in the direction of the mouse pointer's movement. So we're going to click and drag, and you'll see it kind of gathers any objects that are in your path. It kind of grabs them and moves them in the mouse's direction. On the Tweak Tool controls, click the Move Objects Toward Cursor option. And then this kind of moves them, that's kind of cool, it kind of steers it in the direction of the cursor itself. And then next it says on the Tweak Tool controls, click the Move Objects Toward the Cursor, we just did that. Click and drag the objects to move them toward the center of the cursor, we just did that. On the Tweak Tools, click the Move Objects in Random Directions. So now we can, by dragging over our different objects, it kind of just moves them around randomly. That's kind of neat. And next it says move them in random directions. We just did that. Click the other mode buttons and click and drag them to try them out. So just kind of try out. Ooh, that one kind of shrinks them. And let's see what this one does. This one kind of rotates them. So very cool. So that's your tweak tool. You can mess with that just to kind of see the different options you have there. And when you're done using the tweak tools, go ahead and save your project. So a couple different tools there. We have our spiral tool and our tweak tool, our eraser tool. So mess with those a little more just to kind of get yourself a little more familiar. Then go ahead and make sure that is saved again as preview. And you're going to zip that together with your review file and submit those both for assignment 1A.